The name of this piece is called Black Samurai Yasuke. I was very intrigued by this character, especially since he was said to be African, and I found him while doing some research online. Now, it's really hard to confirm the actual specific facts about Yasuke as a man, and even his name is really up for debate. But I guess what really intrigued me about this character was the fact that he rose to such great heights in a completely different society to his own. He was said to be from Mozambique, just as some information about him. And once again, I encourage people to go and do some research on him. Um, so he was said to be from Mozambique, and he was a member, I think, of the Yao people, which is more of an inland area in Mozambique. Um, I did, however, find upon more research that there is some contradictory information available, as some people say that he was also from Ethiopia. There's no facts to back up either way, whether he was from Mozambique or from Ethiopia, but I do find this still makes him even more interesting. According to another theory, with him being from Ethiopia, it says that he was to be from the Habishi. Um, and the reason that why they say that is that the Habishi were sort of well-built, skilled soldiers, unlike other East Africans who suffered from famine. So, according to this theory, his original name might have been, I think it might have been something like Isake, um, or possibly, once again, like I was saying, there is no facts. It might have been a translation or a name given to him by the Portuguese, who would have called him Isake, derived from the name Isaac. So it was also possible then, once again, and this is upon further research, that he could have been from South Sudan. He is described in some text as he was quite famous for his height. He was dark in complexion, and they say that if he was from Sudan, he would have been from the Dinka people, because the Dinka people are among the tallest in Africa. Um, and yeah, he's just quite an interesting character, and the list goes on and on in terms of the research. But once again, there is no solid, concrete research as to say where he was actually from, and I just find this makes it even more interesting. Um, and what this did was, I think, for me as an artist, it made the interpretation of this character even um, more interesting, because if I look back at my childhood, I read a lot of manga comics. I've watched a lot of Dragon Ball Z. And of course, on Friday nights, there were always these martial art movies where they often had these very theatrical and almost exaggerated versions of samurai. And as a child, I think I was very intrigued by this sort of theatrics. Um, so just moving on to the painting itself, the background I painted in a rich gold, and then I started breaking it up with bits of red, as you can see over here. Um, there's something about the red and gold. This red is a cadmium red. There's something about those two colors that really complements each other. His face was actually, so the area over here for his face, this was inspired by a kabuki mask, and I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with the kabuki mask, but let me just quickly open up. This is a kabuki mask, and the kabuki mask is really used in Japanese theater. And so you see it quite often. It's also very exaggerated, strong, bold colors. And so I did my own adaptation of having, this kabuki mask there. Then what's interesting for me, and this was by pure chance, is the colors on the body of Yasuke. I was looking at a lot of Dutch wax textile fabric at the time, and I thought to myself, wow, it'd be great to sort of remix and have this type of textile on his body, but at the same time not have it look exactly like Dutch wax textiles. And so I came up with this color palettes, which is yellow, blue, white, and red. And instead of having his limbs as actual lines, oops, I I went and I added in these colors, and these colors are actually later on, after I started working more on it, these colors are actually figures. So if you start looking into the colors, you can see there are certain figures that are formed. Eyes appear, bodies and form structures appear as well. It's not very obvious, but once you start looking at it, you'll actually start seeing a few of them in there. And this painting definitely links to another painting that I will be doing, and it sort of talks more about the figures that are in here. So those are sort of like little hidden Easter egg, little hidden Easter eggs that I've put in there purposefully. The background is over here, and there are these dials that appear, and basically what these dials are, they really come from a image that I found online, which was of an old turntable. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was a Italian turntable, Italian produced turntable. And this I put in here really because of me remixing this image. I thought, I tied it in with the idea of remixing and turntables. And so I placed this bits of information over here. This is just the name for the dials, etc. Nothing deep or anything in it. I really just liked the way it looked aesthetically. Moving down to the bottom part over here, we have the words mercury and melanin. And so melanin, of course, is referring to the dark pigment or pigments found in most creatures, um, be it in animals or in human beings as well. And we all know that this is a darker pigment found in African and people of color in their skin. So the reason why I put mercury and melanin together is because at the time I was actually watching a documentary, and it was talking about the effect of mercury when used in mining for gold. Mercury is used to separate gold from other impurities. But unfortunately, what it does is for people making use of mercury, they are affected by it. So, in illegal mining where there is not good practice or safety practice, what happens is people start getting something called the shakes, where it affects their nervous systems, their hands can't stop moving. Um, some people go blind as well. And this is something that has sprung up all over the continent of Africa, where there are illegal mining practices taking place. Um, and another thing that it does is it also damages their breathing. So people's breathing, um, their respiratory system is affected as well. They can't breathe properly, and they shake in their sleep as well. And so, even though it's just two words, this is pretty much a painting by itself, which is mercury and melanin. And that is probably the gist of this painting. This is actually one of my favorite works for the series, I think. I'm glad you could tune in to see this one, and I will definitely be creating another painting in future that will link to this one. Thank you.